Very good evening to all of you, dear friends. This is Maneek Kumar, your moderator for today's panel discussion on a very, very relevant topic, careers post-COVID, thrive or survive. This is as a part of the BMU's masterclass, which we bring to you. In the beginning, I would certainly like to thank our media partner for the event today, Education World, for bringing it to you. Well, today, COVID-19 is irreversibly impacting our means of production. That is the way we work. And soon what we are going to see is that our production relations are going to change vis-a-vis the very way we deal with it at work and in the systems itself. With this thought as the centrifugal idea, BML Munjal University has curated a masterclass online series called When Tomorrow Comes. A series which is specifically designed to fortify the knowledgeable with prepared minds. The overlying objective of doing this is future-proof our current and future students who need to be ready for whatever changes, revolutionary or evolutionary, that the future might throw their way. Well, we're already seeing that the academic institutions and organizations have started to alter the teaching learning landscape by adopting varied classroom engagement strategies like online teaching, flipped classrooms, etc. Well, this will not only require a change in the mindset of the learner, but also the teacher. The knowledge requirements will not change drastically, but these mindset changes will be required to negotiate workplaces successfully. Our expectations of them and their expectations, requirements in turn. Well, reflecting on such scenarios as to what would academic spaces look like and what careers would flourish during the post-COVID scenario, we have this evening amongst us a very elite panel of expert academicians to discuss this vital ingredient of academic inquiry and development. First, I'd like to welcome Dr. Das, a very renowned educationist and a career consultant who has established the Institute of Career Studies way back in 1985 and pioneered career counseling and guidance services in India. She's a multifaceted personality who serves on the boards of many prestigious public schools of India, has been an advisor to Small Industries Development Bank of India, member of the Steering Committee on Women and Child Development, Planning Commission, ex-officio director of the State Bank of India, and has participated in many international conferences, India as well as abroad. Well, acknowledged for her deep knowledge, insights, and futuristic vision, she recently organized 2 conferences on Education 4.0 and Careers 4.0, the first ever events of the kind to be organized in the world. Her professional and philanthropic contributions have won her many accolades. Her biography was included in the Who's Who in the World 2015 for exemplary contributions in the fields of education and career guidance. In February 2020, Dr. Das was featured on the cover page of CEO Insights as a trailblazer guiding the nation towards an enlightened destiny. I welcome Dr. Das to this panel discussion.
Thank you very much. Good evening to you all. It's an immense honor to be a panelist in BM Munjal University's signature webinar series, When Tomorrow Comes, with a focus on thrive or survive. 3 eminent faculty members, Dr. Kumar, Dr. Talwar, and Dr. Nigam. It's an immense honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Das, for being on the panel. We look forward to your discussions and answers to some of the questions which will pop up during this discussion. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Vishal Talwar, who's the Dean of School of Management, BML Munjal University. Prior to joining BMU, Dr. Talwar was the head of campus Mumbai and Assistant Dean of SP Jain School of Global Management, Dubai, Mumbai, Singapore, and Sydney. Dr. Talwar has spent close to 12 years in the United Kingdom and returned to India in 2013 as Dean, JRE School of Management, an EduComp Raffles joint venture. Dr. Talwar is a PhD from Manchester United Business School, where he was awarded a doctoral scholarship by the Shell Oil Company. With a first degree in mechanical engineering and a post-graduation in management, Dr. Talwar has worked previously in the automotive as well as the advertising industries in firms such as Exide Industries and Euro RSCG Advertising. He has been featured in the Monocall magazine, the Times of India, Economic Times, Daily News and Analysis, and the Hindustan Times. I welcome Dr. Talwar to this panel discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Maneek, and thank you, everyone, for this invite to the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Talwar, for being there. So we look forward to a nice, interesting discussion coming up through this. Next on the panel, we have Professor Nigam, who is the Dean of School of Law at BML Munjal University. Dr. Nigam was previously a visiting professor at the National Law School of India University, Bangalore. Professor Nigam has also taught as an associate professor in the School of Policy and Governance at Azim Premji University, during which time he also headed the university's newly founded LLM program. Professor Nigam holds a DPhil from the University of Oxford Faculty of Law and LLM in taxation from New York University and a BA LLB honors from the National Law School of India University. Before moving to India, Professor Nigam was a principal lecturer teaching tax law and commercial law at BPP Law School, London. He led a team of academics in delivering undergraduate programs in jurisprudence and postgraduate programs in commercial law and international tax law. Before joining academia, he worked as a tax lawyer in New York and is a member of the New York Bar and the India Bar, Karnataka. Professor Nigam, welcome to the discussion, please.
Thank you. Very good evening to all of you, and I look forward to a great discussion. Thank you.
Allow me to introduce to you Dr. Maneek Kumar, who is the Dean for the School of Engineering and Technology at the BML Munjal University. He, of course, will be moderating the session. He is someone who served as the Dean of Student Affairs at Thapar Institute of Engineering and Technology in Patiala. And of course, before that, he was someone who for a long time was at Thapar, has held very senior positions over there, professor, as well as the head of Department of Civil Engineering for a 6-year term between 2006 and 2012, along with many multiple administrative positions, such as the Faculty Advisor Civil, professor in charge of alumni relations, and of course, the president of the Sports and Literary Society during his career. Welcome, Dr. Maneek.
Yeah, thank you so much for that introduction. And taking this forward, at the outset, I'd very much like to thank each one of you, the panelists, for taking time out for this timely and a much important discussion. Well, before I proceed ahead, I would like to set the tone for today's panel discussion. So obviously, we'll first be asking the panelists to express their views on the topic for about 30 to 35 minutes. And then we'll open it up for questions by the audience. So I'll request the audience to keep posting their questions on the chat box. So we'll pick them up one by one during the last 15 to 20 minutes of the session. So that is how I think we're going to go ahead with this. So I would start this discussion, by asking Dr. Das as to what would be her take on the present scenario of education in wake of this COVID outbreak, and what kind of changes does she expect are bound to happen across the institutions post-COVID?
Well, that's a very, very important issue with so many dimensions to it. I'll try and be brief. So if we were to look at a background, a few years ago, we had embarked on an artificial intelligence-driven industrial revolution 4.0. And it was predicted that the world would witness the same quantum of changes between 2012 and 2022 that it did in 100 years, between 1900 to 2080. However, the unprecedented COVID-19 has accelerated this pace of change and impacting every sphere of our lives. It is now the survival of both the fittest and the quickest. And as far as education is concerned, I find that the COVID pandemic has triggered a sharp learning curve from education 2.0, which was driven by chalk and talk and lecture methods, to education 4.0, with a focus on blended learning using digital media and technology. So this is one of the biggest change, and it has happened, I would say, later than sooner. It should have happened earlier. There's a better connect with teachers for personalized guidance and tutorials, and students are very, very happy and delighted with this connect. The focus has shifted from what is taught to innovative approaches on how it is taught. And this has made the lessons and the interactions so much more exciting. The students' drive for self-learning has been enhanced. And another wonderful development has been learning communities thriving beyond the classroom. So there's a connect of like-minded thinking people and intellectuals with students. Many more opportunities for collaborations have emerged with leading universities and faculties using the technology platform to reach the unreached. So this has been absolutely remarkable. A trend which I find is happening very currently is that students of India who are headed for studies abroad are now looking at studying in India, particularly at leading campuses like BML Munjal University and campuses like yours, which have collaborations and partnerships with leading universities like Imperial College, LSE, Warwick. That's going to be exciting. What is more, the universities abroad are facing a sharp decline of international students with a huge impact on their finances. So there's a financial crunch. As a result of this, they have become very much more liberal with regard to their admission criteria. And surprisingly, some of the top universities have now done away with GMAT, GRE, SAT testing scores. So they're looking at the students' holistic profile, which in the long run is going to change the admission criteria for everybody. It's going to be the right course at the right campus for students. They are also much more open about forging alliances with universities in India. Previously, they were not that open. So overall, access to cost-effective, quality higher education has been boosted and will continue to grow exponentially with cutting-edge online delivery of classes.
I think you made very valid points. Certainly, the days have come from where, we used to have a sage on the stage kind of a concept.
Yes.
And I think it's very important that the sage now comes down, blends it with technology and starts teaching in a very different way. I think you're very right and on the money, with regards to that. And I think that is happening in a fast forward mode, considering the scenario which we are in today. You've made a very valid point there and many of the valid points. But I have a very interesting question to take it forward from here. Considering the scenario now, right? So what do you think, what will happen? What new careers, may take precedence over the already existing ones? Or do you think the status quo with regards to the existing priorities, like people preferring only, engineering, medical or management, that is going to remain, or it's going to change?
Oh, it's going to change dramatically. It's already started changing. So the spectrum of careers 4.0, specialization will continue to expand. For instance, the Internet of Everything, UI, UX, AI, machine learning, augmented reality, virtual reality, robotics, all that will continue to grow. Then digital marketing is something which has come center stage, molecular gastronomy, web series production, genetics and cyber law specialization. So law has two new specializations, genetics and cyber law, data analytics, combinations of subjects like economics and finance with psychology has led to a new specialization called behavioral finance and behavioral economics. Dr. Richard Thaler, who got the Nobel Prize for Economics 2 years ago, got it for behavioral economics, where he studied the impact of human behavior on fast changing markets. Similarly, the ups and downs in the stock market, which are so unpredictable and often based on human sentiment, need to be studied. So this is one new field. Then it's a VUCA world, a world that is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So a very interesting specialization is the marriage of history with maths and computer science. A very unlikely marriage, isn't it? So here, history has always been a study of the past to understand the present and predict the future. In an unpredictable scenario, if you bring in mathematical equations and computer algorithms, you can predict plan A, plan B, plan C with greater surety and accuracy. So cliodynamics is one new field which will come center stage. So these interdisciplinary specializations, interestingly, require specialists from all backgrounds. So it's not uni-focused. We need specialists from all backgrounds in all fields to work in collaborative groups. There was a news item recently that liberal arts shine in the age of artificial intelligence. People used to disregard the arts. They used to feel that the arts have no future. And it was something only for girls. So there was a gender bias there. But today it has changed. So I would say liberal arts graduates and psychology graduates have become the tech company's hottest ticket today. So it's a very big change. While this trend will continue, some post-COVID careers will emerge and there'll be changed avatars of the existing ones. So the existing ones will witness a digital transformation. Every field will witness a digital transformation where there will be a blend of the virtual and the real worlds. Then a new area which needs to be emphasized and students need to be trained in that is serial entrepreneurship, wherein an entrepreneur will have to very quickly shift gears and tracks and move into newer in-demand fields where innovation will be the name of the game. There'll be a return of cottage industry. Definitely a return of cottage industry, and this will require specialists in their respective fields with marketing support. The high-touch careers will flourish. So teaching, every aspect of education, the health sector, the wellness sector, counseling, training, all this is going to flourish. So it's actually going to be high touch before high tech. My mantra is high touch before high tech. Within management, we will need people with specializations in health administration, hospital management. These will be some of the newer areas, and they take people from all backgrounds. You don't need a biology student here or a doctor here. Then environmental sciences, energy specialists, sustainable development experts will be required in large numbers. So also would be specialists in disaster management. Presently, there are very few courses in disaster management. We need many more, and COVID has shown us how important it is. Computer science and IT innovations will continue to move very fast. And so also will scientific research with newer horizons. Now, presently, as you rightly said, science students tended to be directed towards engineering and medicine, the stereotypical pathways. But today, those who are passionate about a subject, math, chemistry, biosciences, physics, have a huge future as scientists in the field. Another area, growth area, will be space technology, with space colonies coming up, and it will require a large number of specialists. Now, what I would like to say here also is specializations in one field will not be good enough for future jobs. Lifelong learning, while aligning our aptitudes and interests with emerging opportunities, will be important. So I'd like to quote from Robert Frost and change it a bit. Robert Frost wrote, "Two roads diverged in the woods, and I took the one less traveled by, and it made all the difference." Now, I say today, infinite roads diverge in the woods. Take the least traveled by, better still, make one of your own. So that is the mantra going forward. Carve your own pathways. Have a career portfolio that brings together the building blocks of all your talents and all your specializations, and which give you that sense of fulfillment that bring meaning to your life.
I think very, very, rightly said, because I think the last quote was the icing on the cake, because yes, I think that is what is the scenario which is looking ahead. And we're looking at infinite roads opening up. And I think we have to walk on those roads, all differently and create our own paths. I think the marriage of various, things will come into the picture, and we'll obviously look towards each marriage is going to take a different path. I think that is what I think very wonderfully put across, Dr. Das, with regards to this. But specifically, Dr. Talwar, with your experience of having studied and taught in premier education institutions abroad, what do you think would change with regards to the management education setup, and which career students would prefer in the area of management studies globally as well as specific to India in this post-COVID world?
So I think, like most other careers, and Dr. Das actually put it very well, management education is going through a humongous transition. And if I try and break it down into a few areas, I think the kind of change is being brought about by essentially three things. One is this whole idea of what is happening to business and economics around us. If you look at this whole concept of automation and AI, machine learning that Dr. Das was talking about, it brings us to focus on something called the exponential technologies that is now being used. And in fact, for the last, let's say, 5-10 years, it was being used to a large extent. With the COVID crisis, this will only get enhanced much further. The speed of adoption of a lot of the automation processes, exponential technologies, looking at new products, new services, new concepts of business models, looking at new supply chains, methods. If you notice nowadays, people talk about contactless retail, people talk about contactless supply chain. Sustainability, and something that has been brought out very recently, especially in the last 2 months, is this whole idea of work from home. Right. The fact is, earlier work from home was considered to be a domain when you had IT companies, you had KPOs, BPOs, largely looking at this as a mechanism for getting work done. But if you look at it in the last 2 months, people at all levels in every organization have been working from home. You got board members who are working from home. I would imagine, people from Tata to the Reliances of the world, everybody's working from home. So it brings in this whole idea of this whole domain which we thought, well, this was home and this was work, has kind of fused together. That also then impacts the economy as a whole, COVID as a whole, new work arrangements as a whole will impact the kind of sectors that will do very well, and the kind of sectors that will take some time to be able to engineer themselves back into sustainability and back into successful health, if I can use that term. So one is that side, which is impacting management education a lot. The other is this whole idea of the changing expectation with respect to business schools and universities in general, right? Schools of management. It's a competitive jobs market. We know that a lot of technology is getting fused into all domains of knowledge, irrespective of whether you are from the marketing domain, whether you're from the finance domain, whether you are from the data sciences domain. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, you do learn certain technology, you do learn certain mechanisms of analysis of software or creation of software or coding or programming. What you also have to remember is there have to be people in the organization who have to optimize on all this. They have to be able to then realize the benefits of implementing a lot of the automation, the IT, the technological change within the organization. Who would do it? It would have to be management graduates who would have to kind of look at this side. Now, how do you ensure that machines and human beings coexist? That will be very, very important. So the role of management actually gets enhanced. What kind of management is something that is very important for us to understand? What kind of management education is very important for us to understand? There's still staying with the same point. Universities have to become more agile, because with the COVID crisis, with this whole stress on the economy, if I can call it that, the expectations will be for universities, especially progressive universities, to become more agile, to become more, fast on their feet, to look at the kind of curriculum, look at the kind of specializations that they're working on, what specializations will work for the future, right? So that's the kind of change that even management education is going through. The third change, of course, is that people who are going in for management education, right? The students, whether they're from the tech background, whether they are people from commerce, whether they're people from accounting, whether the people from the BBA, or whether they're class 11, 12 students who are looking at management courses at a later date. I think what you have to remember here is that how you learn, whether it's experiential, whether it's practical, whether it is based around this whole concept of learning by doing, whether it is helping you build a certain kind of personality, whether it's helping you build a certain communicative capability, whether it's helping you build certain levels of emotional quotient, whether it is helping you become a problem solver, and more importantly, a problem identifier. Yes, you talk about problem solving, but the fact is that the identification of a problem is also very, very important from a management perspective. The problem that you're trying to solve has to be substantial, has to be robust, has to be important to society or the organization as a whole, right? So automatically it brings into focus the students who will be getting into management education, at the undergrad level, whether they want to do a BBA or something else. That's back into focus. The way we see it, and the way I see it, is that for management education, there will be a technology reality. Management students, yes, they might be from the marketing domain, they might be from finance, they might be from human resources. How comfortable are they with technology? How comfortable are they with programming? How comfortable are they with the analysis side, with the statistical side, with the data sciences side? I think that will be fundamentally important and beyond the domain knowledge of what we normally expect an MBA to do, right? That's because the world is changing in that direction. The other is the fact that we also need people who are not only comfortable with the technology side, management grads with the technology side, but also people who understand perspective, who understand civilizations, who understand the world, who understand the impact of what they are going to do, the kind of decisions that they will make. So that brings into focus the liberal orientation as well. So management grads of the future will have to kind of fuse a lot of these areas together. Right? That's what fundamentally we believe as far as management education is concerned.
I think you very rightly put it across, because I think the fusion of technology with liberal arts is going to be the buzzword. I 100% take it that way. I think the work from home culture, which is getting on, I think it is brought, rightly put that all the boards also into the home scenario, and they're all working from there. So I think that's a great learning, which we all are having in these times, specifically considering that we all are now at home for the last 2 months. And I think a lot of changes have happened in the way we feel agile and how we're looking at our body also, because I think probably we're forgetting that particular part. Now it's come to a point where I think we have to start thinking about each and every aspect of what we are involved in as individuals too. So I think you talked about rightly that the emotional quotient has to go up, right? The IQ has always been there, but I think the spiritual quotient also would take a big end point here. And probably if I'm looking at engineering, I think these are some of the traits which will have to be brought into this scenario of how we train our students, not just only on working from one place. We have to look at scenarios for them working in different places, different environments, enclosed and closed, and kind of even individually working. So that's something which I think in an engineering education is bound to have an impact. And I think the fusion is the key word if I look at it. And I think with the 3 schools on campus, BMU, with the engineering, law, and management, I think that is a very convenient kind of a program which definitely can take it off from there. So looking at the discussions, this is what I think can be the way forward, even when we were looking at marrying the 3 together. So that's a very marriage of great convenience which can happen beautifully in this scenario. So that's what I think, that engineering is bound to go ahead in the direction. We're going to have a lot of minor courses, right, which are going to be the keyword. I think the engineer today is not just looking at only engineering as something which he wants to do, or technology he wants to be. He wants to be a good manager. He wants to be a good human being. And he also wants to do something which satisfies his hunger for learning more. So I think what is going to happen in today's scenario is the first thing, which I think would be very important for the students to take away, is to learn to adapt to the new learning environment. I think the learning environment is going to change big time. So learning to learn differently, I think that's probably going to be because earlier we used to say that the teachers have to be a learner first. Now we say that teachers have to be learner with respect to technology, with respect to working from home, with respecting from a different environment. So I think those things are going to come up into the forefront and will amalgamate into this, joint kind of a system which will come forward. So I think that's something which is great coming from the management perspective. Well, Professor Nigam, just coming across to you, so we have covered that perspective of engineering a little bit, management, very well put forward by Professor Talwar. Now, what is happening in today's scenario? We look at newspapers and so many things coming up that, considering the fact that the Indian legal system has now already taken the step of handling legal cases virtually. or in the online mode. So the law people will have to look forward to technology a bit more, right? So rather than going up front and saying, Your Honor, I'm just putting it in that perspective. I think, the virtual moot courts are probably going to be a part of the curriculum. So what is your take that for law students, would you be looking at the option of introducing virtual moot courts and maybe many other changes in the curriculum so that we adapt to this kind of environment? And you never know, the wife may come from the back of the judge in the home and say, what are you doing? Wait. So that kind of scenarios are going to develop. So how do you think that they can be amalgamated into the law education in today's scenario? You're on mute. You'll have to unmute yourself.
No, thank you very much. The problem, the challenge of following three distinguished speakers is one is not left much to say at the end of it, but I'll try. No, it's great to be here and speaking about education and legal education in particular. It's interesting that we are talking about change because legal education, I think of all the fields here, we can safely say, has gone through tremendous change in the last 25 years. I mean, more change than I think any other domain of knowledge. I still remember when I joined law school more than 25 years ago, almost no one knew what a law school is for. The course I went to the National Law School in Bangalore, and that was a 5-year course. And that was, at that time, the first ever 5-year course to be introduced at a scale that was there at that time. So I still remember my college friends teasing me later on saying, you never told us you went to law school. And I remember telling them that even if I had told you, you probably wouldn't have joined it. You would have thought, I don't know what this profession is about. And we are talking about just 25, 30 years ago. So we're just talking about one generation ago. And then you notice how legal education has changed dramatically. We've got more than 20 national law schools. We have now legal education coming into the private space. We have BM Munjal University is one example of institutions getting into legal education and investing it in quite a serious and big way. And the reason for that is that the legal education domain and legal practice, therefore, is considered today and considered rightly as a booming area for potential careers. And there are a couple of reasons for that. So before we get into change, which is the topic of this webinar, it's important to understand that law, to some extent, as opposed to other disciplines, is somewhat impervious to change, in the sense that you can have a recession, you can have a pandemic, and you will still need lawyers, unfortunately, for a lot of things that you need to do. If you have a litigation against someone, you're going to have disputes with people, whether there are pandemics or not. So if you're a corporation, you'll have compliance requirements, whether there's a pandemic or not. So in some ways, law is there. It's kind of a constant in our lives compared to other areas. But in some other ways, as the panelists have already said, law is also subject to the same kind of changes that you're seeing today. So one change you've already identified, which is that the way in which legal disputes are settled need not be in a real court. They can be virtual. And in fact, that's what's happening. You mentioned virtual moot courts. That's not the future, that's the present. We've already had virtual moot courts happening in different parts of the country. The Supreme Court of India has started video recordings and live video disputes, and it has now percolated down to other courts as well. And increasingly, arbitration is being envisaged as being done online. Several lawyers are working on that already. So from that perspective, I think law is subject to technological change, and so is legal education. You mentioned some of the issues pertaining to education in general. Dr. Das and Dr. Talwar mentioned how technology has changed the way we teach our kids. And that's absolutely right. Technology has dramatically, because of the COVID crisis, changed the way we look at legal education. People are more accepting of it and are actually able to deal with it now in a kind of a more sophisticated manner compared to how it was being done earlier. We are still faced with the challenge, though, of the fact that there's no face-to-face interaction between the teacher and the student, and therefore there may not be a personal connect that is required sometimes for effective teaching. I have certainly faced that sometimes when I teach. Some of my best jokes don't get the kind of response I need in the classroom. I think, and I mainly attribute that not to the quality of my jokes, but to the fact that I'm doing online education, and I'm still holding on to that. But these are some of the challenges of online education that I think are going to be faced in the future. But technology sometimes provides solutions to the problems it creates. So as Dr. Das mentioned, we have education communities that have traveled beyond the classroom. And those kind of education communities are made possible only because of online education and only because of technology. And what we call breakout rooms in jargon is what she was referring to as mini education communities that come out outside the classroom. So those kind of things are as pertinent to law, and even more pertinent in a multidisciplinary university such as BML Munjal or any other university having different departments. We already have at BML, we already have the BBA students studying alongside the management students when they're doing their BBA LLB course. And we hope to do the same thing with the engineering students when we move on to matters pertaining to intellectual property and cybercrime. Dr. Das, in the beginning, mentioned two sunrise areas in the law. She said genetics and cybercrime, and both of these are, of course, intimately related to the sciences and to engineering, and therefore would be of any interest to any multidisciplinary university. But I would actually go a bit further and say there are some other domains of law that legal education has to think about, and it's going to come up in the future. One is environmental law. This whole idea that pollution is not a peripheral role, a player in our lives, but it's actually something that's integral to all our lives now going forward. The anti-pollution measures will therefore require environmental lawyers. Again, because of recession and because of the fact that business has to be restructured, we will need insolvency lawyers. Because of the impact of technology, we will need technology lawyers, especially in the field of cyber crimes. So you can see new domains of legal practice and therefore new domains of legal education opening up. But I must end though by going back to my insistence on something being consistent or constant, because I'm an old-fashioned lawyer. I believe that it's very important that we shouldn't get too immersed in newfangled things in education. That I think the best lawyers in the past and the best lawyers in the future will still require certain skills of communication and persuasion, certain skills of effectiveness, certain skills of innovation. And those skills must continue to be learned in law schools. And what's important, therefore, is that even though we have a new ecosystem now and new technologies, what we must do now is to take advantage of them to finesse those skills that we need. So it could be, if I had a crystal ball, my prediction would be that we'll move to a system, not just legal education, I think all education will move to a system where the best lectures will be available on the web, need not be home-based, could be from any host institution. And what would be important for lecturers in the host would be to finesse and develop the skills of the students by working with them, what Dr. Das was referring to earlier as it's important for people to get to know each other intimately, for the student and the teacher to get to know each other intimately. And that relationship will be in the field or in the space of skill development rather than knowledge acquisition. I think knowledge acquisition, because of technology, will perhaps move outside, even outside the university where the students are placed. That's all I have.
I think very rightly put. I think the human interaction part is never going to go away. That is for sure going to remain. And you were talking about the law and the lawyers being there. I think they are bound to, because we are under a lockdown because of a law, right? So it's that kind of a scenario which exists. But I think you very rightly put it across, the face-to-face and the human interaction. It's going to be there. You cannot do it with this. And communication is going to be a very, very important component of all the parameters which we are looking at. Now, even if we are communicating online, it's a kind of a communication which is happening. We are communicating to about 160 participants at this point of time, although we're not seeing them, but I think we're able to communicate with them. So I think that part is going to remain as such for sure, certainly. But I think I have a very interesting thought which came up to my mind, just like I was going through the points put forward by the panelists. So I'll first put it across to Dr. Das. Dr. Das, if you compare with your own student days, now this is a very student-centric question which I'm trying to ask from their perspective, because they are the ones ultimately who are going to go ahead and learn from each one of us effectively. So considering with your own student days, what do you think the students would have to do differently or learn more to be able to cope up with this change scenario of teaching and learning and the kind of new careers which are going to come forward? So what do you think is the change which is going to happen in this scenario?
So a lot has changed. And I would say a new page of history is being written before yesterday's ink is even dry. So one of the best things that has happened is that subjects have moved out of their sacrosanct silos of art, science, and commerce stream. The Indian boards have recognized the importance of interdisciplinarity. So you can take subject choices across the board. Unfortunately, many schools weren't able to introduce this because of many constraints of faculty and timetabling, but schools have done it and done it successfully, and students are thriving in a scenario where they can choose subjects across the board. For instance, have physics and math with history and literature. So a nice blend of subjects. Interestingly, there's a thought that from next year, the eligibility criterion for engineering will not have chemistry. It'll be physics and math with any of the social sciences. And I think that's a good move, except for chemical engineering where you need chemistry. So this has been one big move. The other is that education now has become a buyer's market. It's no longer a seller's market, particularly when it comes to higher education. So students have choices, and there are more seats in quality private institutions and government institutions than students. So we've moved from pressure of competition actually to confusion of choice. Gaining access is getting easier and easier. But the question is that, am I studying what I should be studying at this great campus? So you have to fine tune the choices to each one's frequency. That is where the challenge lies, because there are infinite options, infinite pathways to careers. Another very, very important change that has happened is that students today have access to top quality courses. They may be studying a particular program in school, but if they want to study, for example, positive psychology, they can go to Coursera.net or they can go to Udemy and pick up a course of their choice. So there's a lot of self-learning that is happening, and students are immersed in it. They have access to the best professors in these different fields, and a lot of these courses are free. When we were growing up, the concept was that you are leaders of tomorrow, you're professionals of tomorrow. It has changed. Our Generation Z or Generation Z, our students today, are not leaders of tomorrow. We need to recognize them as leaders of today. They have immense potential to bring about change and transformation, and we've seen it happening. It is our children who have made us aware of sustainable development, about carbon footprints, about so many other issues, about social equality. So that is one aspect. We also should consider them as specialists in their fields of today, who can actually be earning while they're learning from school onwards. So we have young children from age 10, 11, 12 onwards who are inventors, who are teachers, artists, designers, entrepreneurs. They're great at making websites or apps or games. They are also wonderful philanthropists. So you take the entire spectrum, and if given an opportunity, many of these students could be regarded as trailblazers and experts in their field today, and we need to leverage that. So these are some of the changes which have happened, with a lot of pathways, a lot of choices, and we find they're thinking much more about how they can maximize their contribution, how they can tap their potential to the fullest. Some years ago, when I'd visit schools and I'd ask a question, what is it that you want most in life? The answer was money. tell us about a career where we'll make the maximum money. And that is because we had grown up in that whole scenario of job security, and then India moved out from an economy of shortages to an economy of abundance. So now when you ask this question across the country, what do you want most in life? The answer is, I want to be happy. What does happiness mean to them? Developing their potential to the fullest, doing something for the country, making a difference. What they really look forward to is making their passion their profession. And this came to me from a student of grade 9 in the Heritage School, Kolkata, some years ago. I want to make my passion my profession. They're thinking differently. They're more existentialist in their outlook as well, because they think of who am I, where am I, what do I want in life, how do I get there? We didn't think that way. That is the change.
I think you rightly put it across. I think it's going to be the way forward. I think if we all look at our old days when we used to study, I think the biggest change which has happened is probably the students are more informed about the choices, right? And about what they want to follow in their careers. They are very clear.
Yes.
Sometimes you come across students who would say that, I've been forced into this, but ultimately they have their own way and they have their own say. So I think we need to, you're very right. I think we need to provide for all kind of students, who want to be productive. You very rightly said you're living up to the potential and being productive. If they're able to live up to that, they will be very productive. And I think that is the key mantra, which is going to come up, in days to come. And the careers are going to span around these thoughts and processes. I think very rightly put across by the three panelists over here. I think we have had fantastic discussions which have gone ahead. And if I'm looking at the clock, I think we have the question answer. I think I have got 22 questions which have already come up on my window. So I'll take them one by one. So I'll just go ahead with that particular part at this point of time. So let me see what the questions are. So, okay, okay. So the first question, which comes up is, it's from Jatin Chopra. He says, good evening. So I am Jatin and decided to persuade him in future. So just want to know about how to reach at heights, also how to work hard to achieve it. So how to reach the heights and how to work hard to achieve it. So that's the question coming from Jatin. So Dr. Das.
Jatin, I have always believed that if you can dream it, you can do it. Walt Disney said that. But I say that between dreaming and doing, wake up. So once you've decided what you want to do, it's important to believe in your goal, believe in yourself, and develop a very dynamic pathway along with time management skills to reach your goal. So be specific, do a SWOT analysis. What are my strengths, weaknesses? What are the opportunities before me? What are the threats or stumbling blocks? And then actually go through a process of know yourself, inform yourself, and then plan for yourself. I would also like you to know, Jatin, that in your lifetime, you will have a minimum of 5 different careers. So just keep tracking the changes and be that lifelong learner who can make the switch whenever required, because where your talents and the needs of the world match lies an opportunity. So grab it when it happens.
I think very nicely put across, there. I think Jatin would be certainly satisfied with the response he got. So we have this next question coming up from Anurag Nautyal. So I think this can be taken up by Vishal because he's getting into this. So this is like, do you think the taste of online classes will remain there after COVID ends?
Well, I think this is something that, is a big question and something that I noticed on the chat box as well. A lot of people are talking about technology, learning, this whole idea of access to this technology. The fact is that, us as universities, as setups, we're obviously looking forward to the fact that students will be coming back to the campus, right? So there's no doubt about the fact that we are looking forward to the time that the government actually allows us, for the students to come on campus. So whether it is in July, whether it's in August, whether it's in September, the fact is, irrespective of the schools, we're looking forward to that. Now, what you have to remember here is many things. One is this whole idea of the new education policy and how they will increase the gross enrollment ratio, from 25% right now to 40%. How do you do that? Right? That's something that also needs to be thought about. How does the government ensure that people get access to this kind of education? Yes, there'll be a limitation of technology, there'll be a limitation of access, there'll be a limitation of internet connectivity, but these are all constraints. And over a period of time, with 5G or 4G penetration increasing or 5G coming in, a lot of these constraints may not remain. One is that side. The other is, when we do online learning, there's a lot of impetus on the student to be able to be very active in the learning process. And remember, we, from an Indian perspective, we are largely, a setup or a system, by and large, wherein there's a lot of dependence on the faculty for every aspect of the learning process, right? And also at the same time, you also have to remember that we at times, students at times maybe learn for the exam and not necessarily for the learning itself, right? So when we do effective online learning, in my opinion, that effective online learning through asynchronous mechanisms, synchronous mechanism, using of the right kind of tools, using the right kind of engagement platforms, creating that comfort level with the students, not necessarily taking the process that you use in the classroom traditionally, you're taking it to the online medium. That will obviously not work. But the fact is that the online experience that universities are gaining right now will definitely lead to a better classroom environment. Will definitely lead to a classroom environment wherein there is learning happening 24/7, wherein students are being able to do flipped approaches to learning much better. But nobody's taking away from the fact that face-to-face learning is going to go away or get evaporated. It will only enhance the student's ability to appreciate learning, become more continuous in his learning process, and of course the faculties as well. That's what I fundamental believe. Of course, what you also remember is that the online learning experience that we've all been thrown into as such will also identify a lot of newer courses, newer curriculums, newer models of learning as well. That's what I
think Vishal has put it very rightly across. It's going to be a blended mode which is going to go in. Even if the classes start now where the students come to the universities, I'm pretty sure both the modes are going to stay, right? So the face-to-face is not going to go. But I think the online learning is going to stay, and it's going to stay for a very long period of time. It's not going to go away if I look at it that way. So I think that's very rightly put across, there. Well, I have a few questions. I think Das can take those questions because they're all about careers directly. Yes. So people are saying, so I'll put up all those questions together here. So people are saying that would agriculture, a PhD in agriculture be good? The entertainment industry would have, how much scope does it have? Yes. Can, career in English, would it survive? So these are different questions which I see on the chat box. So maybe you can take it up at one stretch itself, the agriculture, yes, entertainment, and English.
So as far as agriculture is concerned, there will be a resurgence of agriculture because there's a demand for sustainable agriculture and demand for agricultural produce, which has not been treated by a lot of chemicals and so on. So agriculture and agricultural marketing will continue to grow. It will be like more localized as well. Buy local, buy fresh, buy local. That will be important. So I have already found students moving into agriculture. So doing courses in agriculture or short programs, and then also moving from agriculture to processing the foods. So agriculture, food processing, using the latest technologies and marketing. So a lot of people would need to come together for that. Coming to entertainment. Entertainment will go online. So we had a program recently called One World, where artists from across the world delivered a beautiful concert. Presently, many concerts, many plays, stand-up comedies have happened online. You'll get back to having it on stage, but both modes will exist with greater opportunities for you to collaborate with specialists across the globe and do some amazing concerts with them. So there'll be newer opportunities. Yes, webinars and will help to also showcase some of the talents, and web series production, wherein in a small studio with limited equipment, you can make films, you can make various documentaries that will give you a lot of opportunities. So yes, this field may see a slight setback for a year or two, but it'll come back with newer opportunities. What was the third one? Third
English.
question.
English.
English. English will be always required. English is the, I would say, the language of communication of science and technology. And English is required in every sphere of life. So if you study English, it's great for the, I would say, any programming, any science and technology, for teaching, for publishing, for the field of media. So English will always have scope, and so also will other languages. But English is the language of the world right now. You know, in the 19th century, it was French. And when French was the language of the world, the British learned French, the Russians learned French. So right now it's English, and it's going to be there for a while.
Some of the people have said, is new technology going to replace teacher in India? What about choosing teaching as a career? So I'm pretty much, this is
No. Teaching will be universal. New technology will simply be an additional aid, which will make it more impactful. So you will go back to a scenario of being able to interact with your teachers at a personal level. I have another thought here. And the thought is, Professor Talwar talked about working from home, and TCS has said that all its workers are going to work from home. So what's going to happen to those office spaces and buildings? There'll be newer uses for them. And I would propose a use where these become learning hubs, neighborhood learning hubs, to facilitate access to the best connectivity and technology for students who don't have access to them. That is one thought we could use those buildings for if they are redundant. There are many other possibilities, but this is one thing that I would like to share. Could also use them for better accommodation. The ones which are dilapidated and they tend to collapse could be pulled down, and we could have green spaces. So there are a lot of possibilities right now of restructuring our way of life, our way of thinking, our way of learning, our way of working, and it can be better and better. What I feel is all of us should think of striking that equilibrium that the post-COVID world presents us with. An equilibrium where we would have a better environment in every sense of the word, an ecosystem that is conducive for all.
I think very rightly put across again, and I find multiple questions which are talking of that, can we replace chalk and blackboard method with technology? So as rightly put, I think that has been answered, that it's going to be a pot which is going to blend into the technology as well. So I think that many of the questions regarding this have been answered.
And here what we also should recognize, which both the professors talked about, and you have also, that we cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater. We have to retain the best practices as we go to the next practices. And there has to be a fine balance between between both of these. So I think that is important. Retain the best practices, move to the next practices.
Yeah, I think very rightly put across again, because that's how the things are going to pan out. Some of the questions are related to law. I think they have already been taken up by Professor Nigam while he was discussing. So a very specific question here. So what about if we are looking for law courses? That's a specific question. So would you like to add something to this, Professor Nigam?
Yeah, I think if you're looking for law courses at the undergraduate level, I think the law courses are inevitably going to be 5-year law courses. Usually the typical pattern is that you have a BA LLB course or a BBA LLB course. And I would expect that the students who want to choose between these two kind of typical courses that are offered at universities is to choose depending on what their passions and their tastes are. If you would like to mix liberal arts with the law, go for the BLLB course. If you would like to get some management related and business related education with the law, go for the BBLLB course, with the caveat that these are not all set in stone. That is, that you're not debarred from a corporate career just because you went to a BLLB course, because ultimately what you do as part of your law school counts for more than anything, and therefore there'll be plenty of opportunities for you in either of these two streams to choose the particular career in law that you would like to go to, maybe corporate law, environmental law, healthcare law, cyber law. All of this will be open for either of these two 5-year courses.
Okay, I think that would have answered that question for sure. I think this is a very interesting question which has cropped up at this point of time. So Dr. Das would like to take this question. It says, will the degree obtained by distance be valued in the same manner as the regular degrees?
Definitely. So ultimately, first of all, we must keep in mind that the degree you get should have recognition from a body. For instance, if you do a medical course, there's a Medical Council of India. If you go in for, let us say, a technical course, that's AICTE. For legal course, Bar Council of India. But going beyond that, beyond degrees, it's your knowledge that counts, your domain knowledge. So when you do additional courses, it's the domain knowledge that makes a difference. The Government of India policy presently is that it does not recognize offshore courses delivered in India. However, a lot of universities abroad are recognized by the different bodies of India. So if you go and study there, and it's recognized, your qualification will be recognized in India. The private sector does not sort of remain confined to these kind of recognitions. It's for if you're applying for government jobs or you're going in for anything which is an autonomous institution. The bottom line is everybody requires a basic graduate qualification from a recognized university or college. Beyond that, whatever knowledge you pick on, whatever add-on courses you do, are only going to enhance your employability. In some of the add-on courses we recommend today are courses like analytics, design thinking, digital marketing, so these will change, but it's important to pick it up because it, as I said, adds value to what you bring to the workplace.
And there is a very specific question for you. It said, my question is to Dr. Das. So I'll bring that question up front. Yes. It says, a combination of history with maths and science, won't it lead to increase in the workload of the students?
Well, not at all. You see, if you study history and maths, which is offered today, and you're good at both, you enjoy both, you do it with ease. But if you find maths interesting, however difficult to score in, you don't have to have it as a board subject. You can learn it from alternative sources. You can do it as an open school subject. You can do it as an advanced placement course where you have calculus A, B, and BC, and students have loved doing that. And that has made them eligible for a number of courses abroad, including BA and economics, which require maths. So you didn't have maths during the board exam or on your paper, board exam, final report, but you can have it as an additional recognized qualification. So see what you can manage well and then take it up. There are many ways of picking up these courses. So if you're interested in cliodynamics, which is going to be an amazing field, if history is your subject, pick up math and some courses in computer science and statistics alongside. But if math is your field with computer science, definitely read history. I was very fascinated to read The Future Computed, a document by Microsoft, which says the future is for those who combine technology and technical education with the humanities, and vice versa.
Another question to add to that, it says, what possible changes we can expect in civil administration careers? That's an interesting question.
Very interesting question. In civil administration careers, it'll be a lot of e-governance now. So e-governance is one aspect. And the other trend, which has already started, that there will be a lateral entry for specialists in their field. So if you're a specialist in environmental science, and you're good at it, you can be in the environmental ministry as a joint secretary after some years of work as a lateral entry. So there'll be much more of lateral entry into governance. There'll be e-governance. There will also be better partnerships between civil society and governance. And so, for instance, I was an ex officio director for some years of the State Bank of India. So here was a complete outsider, non-banking person within the banking sector. So your expertise will be definitely harnessed.
Okay, I hope that would have answered his question. Coming next, now this is a very specific question to Professor Nigam here. So Nigam, sir, the question is, which specialization of law has the largest scope in future in India? So that comes from Janvi Singh. So you'll have to unmute here, please.
Yes, yeah. Thank you. Which specialization in law? I mean, there are two things I need to say here. One is that a person who's getting into the legal field, so at an undergraduate level, so we're talking about somebody who's just completed his or her 12th standard and is getting into, and is going to embark on a legal education of 5 years, shouldn't get too worried about specialization at this point of time. Right? So at this point of time, of course, you have a choice between BA-LLB and BBA-LLB, and that choice, as I said, is determined by your interests and tastes. But going forward, I wouldn't be too worried about choosing a specialization immediately. I think you must take your time. You've got 5 years, which is a sizable length of time. Please go through those 5 years of law school. Somewhere in the 3rd or 4th year, you will start thinking about what area of law really interests you. And then you can go further and do that. So for example, in your 3rd year or 4th year, especially in a course, say for example, in our law school, we have, it's not just BLLB, we have a BLLB honors course or a BBLLB honors course. And it's honors because we expect our students to take extra subjects in their senior years, in their 4th and 5th year. And so while they do that, they can explore at that point of time through those subjects that they take, what their interest in particular areas of law could be. It could be environmental law, corporate law, commercial law, securities law, banking law, insurance law, foreign investment law. Any of these areas are interesting by themselves. And it's at that point of time that they can start thinking about it. Tax law, I'm amused at myself that I forgot tax law. I'm a tax professor. And tax is also one of the lucrative areas of practice nowadays. So in terms of just money power, tax law, corporate law, commercial law, banking, securities are very interesting and lucrative areas of law. But you must ideally follow your passion. So look at what area of law interests you, and whatever area of law interests you, go for it. Money will inevitably follow. So it shouldn't be the other way around, right? So ensure that you choose an area of law that's important for you, not from the point of view of how much money it can generate, but from the point of view of your interest in it, and then just follow through with it, and you'll have a great career. Thank you.
I think correctly, this passion, make your passion your profession. That is what you rightly put it across here. I think that would have satisfied Janvi for sure. One specific question on career, then we have 2 general questions. So that is, we have 3 questions left here. So we'll take it. The first one, I think Dr. Das would like to take that question. It says the aviation sector is suffering in this pandemic, and I see my career in aviation sector. Can you tell me the future of aviation sector? So your take on that.
So the aviation sector has seen many ups and downs, and it had witnessed a down in the 80s and 90s, and then there was a blue sky policy, and many more airlines came up, and it came back to being a very dynamic growth field. So I feel that presently it's witnessing a dip, but it'll be back. However, for such sectors, it's important to have some fallback options and safety nets. So you could see, along with aviation, what else would you like to take up, which is close to your passion or which is also your passion. And it could be anything like management or law. Then if it's law, you can go into aviation law as well. You can move into gaming and bring in games which have aviation fundamentals in it. So you could definitely look at a fallback option or a safety net for areas like aviation, which tend to be volatile, and there's a growth spurt and then it comes down. uh, I think it's important to be very, very secure when it comes to careers like aviation and travel and hospitality and so on.
Okay, we have this question, which is probably going to be the last one. It's very different from. It's not talking about careers at all. So it's a very general question. I think we can have a take on that for a minute, each one of us, and then maybe we can close the session because it says, it's very interesting. So it comes from Fish Singh. It says, it is important. Is it important to be serious every time? As we students are told to be serious always, will seriousness be good? So it's a very interesting question in this webinar. So I thought I'll take this question at the very end because that sets the tone because we have been this kind of a session for the last 1 hour, 11 minutes. And I think we can wind up with such type of a question, which could be very relevant.
So while being serious about your pursuit, it's important to have fun while learning, while working. So a fun-filled approach to life, sense of humor will actually make a difference. So seriousness should be confined to a particular aspect of your study where you have to prepare for an exam, but it should not kind of overtake your life. So it has to have a balance of fun moments as well, your hobbies, your interests, do what you love doing, meet with friends, meet with people, connect with people. In the Harvard study on what makes people happy, which is a 70-year-long study, and it took a cohort and studied them and their families for almost 70 years. It found that what made people happy and healthy and successful was caring, nurturing relationships. And it was just moving beyond the confines of your work to a work-life balance. So a study balance with your life, a work-life balance is very, very important today. That's my take on it.
Sure. Dr. Talwar, would you like to have your
I think I'll have a go at this. Before that, very quickly, if you allow me, there's one particular question that I think the person has been asking is about the career opportunities BBA.
Yeah, BBA. Yes, that's come up.
If it's all right, I can quickly, give her
it just came up on the CS. You can please go ahead.
Yeah. So I think, there are a lot of career opportunities as far as the BBA program is concerned. Nowadays, you would notice a lot of companies are also hiring at the undergraduate level. Because for various reasons. One, they're finding the right kind of talent. The other is that when you're young and you join organizations after you finish the UG, I think many times companies like working with young people because at the end of the day you can capture the ethos of the organization and in a sense, for the lack of a better word, be molded. One is that. The other is also the fact that we have to realize that there are, you have to be able to get into a good BBA program, right? A BBA program which views an undergraduate education as a terminal degree, right? Many times undergraduate courses, some undergraduate courses are not viewed as terminal degrees because the belief is I will do something after this. So I will put in a lot of my effort when I do that something else. Right. So fundamentally speaking, if you're looking at a career after you finish your UG program and which will become prevalent in the longer term, especially with the kind of crisis that we are going through, important to invest your time and effort and also your money in a serious BBA program. There are many opportunities, analysts, consulting opportunities. There are opportunities in banking, many sectors that you can be part of. Coming back to this whole idea of whether you should always be somber or whatever. I think you have to enjoy what you're doing. Fundamentally, whatever course you're doing, whether it's engineering, whether it is a BBA, whether it's a BCom, whatever else you're doing, you have to have your heart in it. right? And once you have your heart in it, I think the whole process will become more enjoyable, right? This whole ethos of, being very serious or being told to be very serious. Uh, the fact is that learning can be fun. And I think we should take it as that as well, right? In right moderation, of course.
Yes.
That's my take.
I've always said that the amount of learning we have is proportionate to the fun we have while learning. So as you said, it's enjoy what you're doing. And if it's necessary and you have to do it, then learn to enjoy it. Either you enjoy it or you learn to enjoy it and make it interesting for yourself. Get immersed. So I also wanted to, as you had asked me to look at, okay, what next? How do we go about it? What is the future going to be? So what I feel is that while making the most of the present and immersing ourselves in it, we need to be future ready. And the thought I want to leave everybody with is, so let us prepare for and challenge the future today. Lead the change. We are all in a position to lead the change and create a better tomorrow for all.
I think very thought-provoking there. So I think very, very thought-provoking. I think another question has popped up. So I think we should take this well. Why not? So it says, how do we look forward to having a career with subjects psychology and Hindi? So this is the one which has cropped up the last. So you take on this, Dr. Das.
So psychology has a lot of specializations, and you have the option of going into those specializations in psychology, like clinical psychology and economic psychology, psychobiology. So there are a lot of specializations, counseling and health and educational psychology. So psychology has a lot of specializations. Hindi in itself has a lot of specializations. So you could be into the field of media. There are government jobs, say the Reserve Bank of India and the banks hire Hindi officers. You can move into translation, writing. So they are both specific fields. If you were to bring it together, I would say you could write literature, psychology, books on psychology in Hindi. There's a big demand. You could teach the subject in Hindi, talk about it in Hindi, because most of the books in psychology are written in English, not in Hindi. So if you're interested and you did some good translation work and you wrote your thoughts in this realm of psychology in Hindi, there would be a huge demand for what you could do. Of course, in any career, understanding people helps. So, the humane touch, the understanding of people, HR, all that is developed through the study of psychology as well. So it's a behavioral science which has a use across the board, whether you're a doctor or a lawyer or a manager or a teacher or an environmentalist. There's animal psychology, for instance, environmental psychology. So you could use specializations which are standalone or integrate them, as I said, and there's a lot of scope. All the best to you.
Okay, Professor Nigam, your last word on that, before we come to this end. Professor Nigam?
Thank you. I think I agree with my fellow participants. I think learning should be fun. In fact, the first thing we tell our law students when they come to the law school, especially for law students, since they take a look at all those big books and they think their life is going to be very tedious and hard and without any happiness for the next 5 years. So we tell them, no, don't worry about that. Life is fun. Don't separate your lives into a necessary evil like classroom instruction and then fun outside the classroom. Try to mix the two. You could have a lot of fun in the classroom just when you get interested in the kind of subjects we teach. So I agree with the rest of the panelists.
I think wonderfully put. I think what I'll do is I'll end with a small anecdote from Three Idiots, because there is a question which popped up here, which matters most, success or excellence? I think follow excellence, success will follow you. That is what Three Idiots talked about. I think, and I would only say that, enjoy the moment, because, every moment is very precious, whether you're in the class, you're outside the class, and you just have to know how to switch off and switch on, because happiness is all about that. If you are in the workspace, switch on to the workspace. If you're out of it, switch off and move on to the next space. Because I know it's a little difficult understanding him in today's situation, but I think now IQ has been added into, by so many other things of EQ and SQ. I think we need to, upgrade our questions other than the intelligence question. I think I'm pretty sure we are going to enjoy whatever we are going to do in our lives. So with that note, I would like to thank Dr. Das. I think you provided a fantastic perspective on the various careers which came across. You have been a gracious speaker, and I think the audience would have thoroughly enjoyed each and every moment of this webinar where you could put your presence. I think your presence has been stamped. Thank you so much for being there, Dr. Das. Thank you, Dr. Talwar, for bringing in a wonderful perspective and talking about the management careers and very aptly putting it across to the people around that, how the technology is going to affect changes there. So thank you for being there. I thank Dr. Nigam because I think he brought in a very important perspective of face-to-face and being there all the time. I think that is not going to go away. So I think that perspective was fantastic. And I think this discussion has taken the right route, and I'm pretty hopeful that the audience would have definitely benefited from the discussions which we had today. Thank you so much for being there. And I once again thank the masterclass host and the educated world who brought it to all of us. So thank you, and thank you very much for being a part of this wonderful session. God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kumar, for so ably steering this session and for the wonderful inputs we had from the other two panelists. It was indeed a very, very enriching experience.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Thank you.
Thank you
All.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Das. Thank you, Dr. Nigam.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.